It is winter time, I am cold, here's some special effects makeup, let's make it look like we have frostbite. This tutorial is beginner friendly and all products are linked in the description below. For this makeup, we're going to start with a red base, and we're going to put this onto our chin, cheeks, nose, and also our forehead. When you're out in the elements for a long period of time and you get really cold, you're going to start to have blood that comes to the surface of the skin. It will be around usually areas that are raised just slightly, and that's where frostbite will also happen too. Where you're also going to have some of this red tone, you're also going to have some purples, blues, and other colors that are like that, and that's just because the skin in this general area starts to go and lose any sort of circulation to it, so you get all of these lovely colors. I'm using blue as the next color over my lips, along with also just giving this cold toned base to a lot of these different areas. After that had been put down, then we can move on to some liquid latex. I'm putting this onto my nose, cheeks, a couple different areas that are on also my forehead and my chin. I'm using my finger to pat this out. You could also use a latex-free makeup sponge. If you use one that is latex, then this latex will just peel off as soon as it dries slightly. Latex also does dry in layers too, so keep that in mind. You do not want to make these too thick, or some of the latex underneath might not dry properly. If you do have a latex allergy, you can always use some scar wax, or as an alternative, you could always use some skin-safe glue. And that would be along the lines of a school-type glue. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, after that, I'm putting some blue onto my lips. You would normally get some bluing along with also purple to the lips, and this is just, again, when you start to lose any sort of circulation in this general area. A lot of these areas would be the nose, mouth, along with also the cheekbones and the ears, along with also the chin here. After that layer of latex had dried for the most part, I'm peeling it very slightly with this metal tool. If you're using metal sculpting tools like this, or you're using special effects makeup tools like this, you do need to be careful. In the past, I've gotten a little bit crazy with these tools, and what can happen is you can accidentally mark up your skin, open it up, or leave little tiny cuts, and believe me, it's not fun when you go back over it with makeup. While you're making these marks in the liquid latex and you're pulling it up, you'll notice that the latex is going to stretch a bit. You do want to stick to itself, so we're not going to powder the latex before doing this. If you have it stick to itself and it also rolls together, it's going to make this look so much more realistic and look like the skin at the edges has bunched up. As I'm doing this, I'm using my finger just to go and slightly roll it at the edges. And again, going nice and slow, pretty much only guiding the point there to just slightly move it. At the edges of my nose, I'm using some purple powdered cosmetic. This is just to go and give it that more of a purpled blue tone, make it look pretty angry in this area. Also using some of this on my chin along with some blue powdered cosmetic, and all of the powdered cosmetic that I have used for this has been just a bit of eyeshadow, which I use from a couple of different palettes. I'm putting a bit onto my lips, and now where my eyes are, I am using some highly pigmented water-activated eyeshadow, and I'm just using a very small bit of this using my finger to pull out that color from the bottom, and also to go and blend it. I don't want to make this too intense, but I want to make it look like my eyes are slightly sunken, and you can do that by using darker colors. Usually purples, blues, along with also some reds really do make this effect look pretty real. You can also use some browns too, but I didn't want to for this look because I have a decent amount of red that is already down too. For this portion of the makeup, I highly suggest using either Mehron or a brand that I recently discovered, which is Nekoyanin, and I just really love how pigmented some of these are. I'm also using some on my nose, chin, and cheeks, and I'm very lightly tapping this out with my finger before it dries. What I also really do like about this type of product is that you can re-wet it again and then pull it around. And I'm also using some red too to make it look like there's been some bleeding and peeling of where the flesh is. I know, gross, right? But that does also happen too when you do get frostbite. You might have some bleeding that's underneath these darkened areas, which we will be following up with some black cosmetic after the red is down. Or you can just leave this red cosmetic too and lightly wipe the center of each area that you put it down, and it really makes it look pretty gnarly. but in my opinion, that looks a bit more like a zombie look in comparison to a Frostbite look. I'm blending a very slight bit out of this on my chin and also my cheeks, and I'm adding this to every area that has the liquid latex that dried and I peeled and bunched up. As I'm adding this, I'm mainly adding it for these smaller pieces at the edge area and then just blending it, keeping some of that redness at the edges, and this doesn't have to be perfect. The messier it looks, honestly, the more realistic this starts to look, and just the grosser this makeup does look as well too. After all of that has dried, I put some more liquid latex onto my lips, and this is going to be a little bit silly when I move my lips back and forth, but what I'm doing is I'm very slowly expanding where all of these cracks are of my lips, getting some of that liquid latex bunched up, but as it dried, it left more of these bunched areas to make it look like I had some split lips, and I used some of this red cosmetic too, just to make it look like there were some split areas that were possibly bleeding. As I was blending that out and after the latex had dried, then I went back to some of these different areas with a lighter red to just blend it with some of that darker red, make it look like it was a little bit wet. Made sure to put some onto my chin, all of the other areas too. After that layer was done, I went back up to my eyes and I put some red cosmetic. It was the same one that I was using just a moment ago over my eyes. Blended that out, and I made it look like they were slightly red. I would imagine that if I had frostbite, then I would probably be rubbing my nose and my eyes. I'm also brushing the outer portion here with some red powdered cosmetic just to make it look that bit more angry. And in the center of where each and every one of these frostbitten areas are, I took some black cosmetic and I blended it in with some of the red. Where you do end up getting really, really bad frostbite, the skin after a while will start to really darken and eventually will turn black typically, and then that limb or that area is no longer good. You don't have blood circulation to there, and that piece of your flesh is going to fall off, which, terrifying, I know, gross, I know, but for this makeup, we want to make it look like we have some pretty gnarly areas going on. So as I was doing this, there were areas that I did get just slightly darker, like my nose along with also my chin. And on the outer edges, I blended it with a darker red cosmetic, just so it didn't look too out of place. I brushed some white cosmetic into my eyebrows, along with also at the edges of my eyelashes to make it look like there was some snow on there. I did that on both sides, and after that had dried, then I went back in with some translucent setting powder, put it onto my eyebrows, and put it onto pretty much everywhere that I had these open wounds. Used my finger just to dab off some of the extra material that was there, and continue to add some of this here. For a lot of my makeup looks that involve some sort of fake snow or along those lines, I usually tend to lean towards translucent setting powder. You can always use fake snow, that is those little plastic pieces. I do, though, tend to stray away from those little tiny pieces of plastic because I don't want it in my nose and I really don't want it in my eyes. The makeup at this point is pretty much done. You could spray it beforehand with some setting spray or use some more setting powder. But here's what the makeup looks like. And at this point, I was actually very cold when I filmed this, but my favorite part of all makeup is taking it off. So please enjoy me taking this makeup off. Liquid latex peels off pretty easily, and the rest comes off with a wet washcloth that has some makeup remover on it. Thank you all so much for watching. There's more tutorials on my profile. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.